Okay, so I guess it's yeah, I guess it's recording. All right. I don't know if I just felt like actually just recording it because you know what? I just sort of you know why? Because I think that one is I get really tired of typing crap, and secondly because I feel like with the amount of time that we could potentially end up spending, um, you know, in our houses, it probably would be a good idea for us to find new ways to connect with each other that are as real as possible because this is like I don't know when's going to be the next time we get to have a person to person conversation with each other. So anyway, there's my first minute. The clock is ticking as I ramble on. Um, but you know what I wanted to talk about? I went to go proof my yeast, and I got to thinking about it, what it means that for the last three times I've tried to make bread, it won't rise because there's just, I haven't tried to proof my yeast yet. Like um, I haven't really done that, and that's a step that, as I've been studying how to make bread, they're telling you really got to do. You've got to make sure your yeast is good because otherwise, you just don't get that rise. You don't get what you want. And I guess I kind of got to thinking about, I don't know, I got to thinking about this stuff that I've been typing about this morning, which was, my attitude has really changed towards President Trump. And I don't really think that I ever had a die-hard, love affair for Donald Trump, but I did kind of think that people were just all putting an awful lot of salt, into things one way or the other, which has always been something that I've been weary of. Basically, I don't believe that we should ever put that much clout into any one political leader, especially when it comes to the president, because I think that the higher up they go in the power chain, the more I'm inclined to look at them, with doubt, because I watch every move they make, and I tend to have this attitude, right, about that. Okay, and this is my personal attitude, and my personal attitude has been difficult because people, I think, have at times really questioned what I'm about. But I'm not about choosing sides. Okay, so that sounds like a cop out, but it's not a cop out. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that it's common sense that anybody who is, the president of the United States, is in a position of such power that, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's beyond anything that I think, most of us ever really take the time to really think about. I mean, we're talking about, power. And the idea that we would suddenly suspend all of our doubts in humanity, and entrust all of it into one, or not trust, one way or the other, it's always been a problem for me. The idea that we're sort of expected to just kind of blindly, I guess, either go yay or nay to this individual who at the time happens to be there. I don't think that. Let me calm down for a second because I have to say this carefully, and I have to try to say it within 10 minutes because I promised myself I would do this within 10 minutes. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I I personally don't think that they have ever, when I say they, I mean our leaders, the rich and so forth and so on. I don't really feel that, especially when you go back to, like, say, Vietnam era, that kind of thing. I don't really feel that our leaders have listened to the voice of the people. All right, I just don't. Um, so that's kind of my thing. It's just that I think that people are desperate to find somebody to believe in when it comes to all of this. And so whenever we have to go through these, these political things like elections, and, people try to choose a side, and they try to just stick with it because they're really hoping, that they can believe in something, something that will save us. I've always been more inclined to think, well, all in all, especially since Vietnam, I don't feel that we have been listened to. I don't think that the American people have been listened to. I think, by and large, never voted for the majority of these wars. And I think that wars have always been a big issue for me, warfare, and the idea that they do these things irregardless of what the American people want. They come up with the money for it, irregardless of what the American people want, and irrespective of Congress, which is the way it was supposed to be decided when this whole thing was planned. So it's like I don't put the clout into a lot of this stuff in the way that other people do, because I just sort of feel that whatever it is, and I can't even begin to explain what it is, but whatever it is, it seldom has to do with the opinions or the feelings or the wishes of the American people. So that's always been my big issue, is that I'm not going to be, sucked into a game that says, let's all pretend that this person is very important, because I don't think that, by and large, any of these presidents are important. I think that the people are. And I think that that's where we're losing our emphasis, is the idea that, the president is the important one, and the rest of us, well, whatever. So all you really have to do is just choose the right political candidate, and you can sit back and be glad that you've done your job as an American. And I don't think that that's the answer. I think that we'll always and forever have to continue to be the ones who say, this is us, this is our thing. That's really the point of it. If it isn't, then we might as well just elect a monarch, or whatever, change our system over and make it something else. So that's been my issue. So I mean, and I'm not, and I've never been against anybody having a someone they like, they admire, great, but I will never be, no matter what happens, I will never be somebody who thinks, well, I'm going to put everything I've got, all my Easter eggs are going into this basket, and, and because, boy, oh boy, this guy, certainly you can trust this guy, 100%, yes, no, so it looks like I'm going to go beyond my 10 minutes, and I'll tell you why, because I want to add one last part of this. And that's just, okay, this has to do with conspiracies, all right? And, I have spent a long time watching and understanding and learning about some things that I think probably many of you haven't. And it has to do with this kind of like bigger picture, that goes on behind the workings and the operations of Washington, D.C. And I certainly have seen more than enough evidence to suggest that there is a kind of viewpoint that various different individuals in powerful places have about how they think that the world should be run, what they think really should happen here, on a global scale, and all of that kind of thing. And it's obvious enough to me that that is very real, and God only knows, what the actual facts of the situation are from day to day. But I certainly do not think that that we should just assume that there are not people out there in powerful places that would like to kind of transform this world that we live in into more of their own design. I mean, if we don't know that that's the case, then I think we'd be idiots. So, but what I've learned in the last few years of my life, because I got sucked into a kind of you might say, a relationship with negativity, and I don't really think anymore that it's productive to sit around and call everybody else a bunch of idiots because maybe they do or maybe they don't see these kinds of things. My original reason for wanting to understand those things was because I wanted to be basically knowledgeable, in a real way. I wanted to know the truth, and I knew that the truth was not something that was right there, being put in my face, that it was something I needed to look for if I wanted to find it. And sometimes when you find the truth, you don't find out what you want, what you want to know. And I've long since passed that mark. So I think that now what I think is that if in the process of facing the devil, which I think is how I liken it, if you want to look the devil in the eye, there's a test that you go through, because the devil's convincing. He is a very convincing thing, and I think that you can become basically, almost like the price you pay for looking him in the eye is you succumb to his power, right? To his negative power. You become, in a sense, obsessed with these ideas of we're fucked, and we're screwed, whatever, we're in big trouble. And you can forget the point of why you set out in the first place, to know these things. So I've seen a lot of my friends, that are obviously, that are into this thing the way I am, and they see and know, and they think they know what's going on. What really gets me is when I see a lack of humility. So I was going to say, in the last year, I think that that's what I'm learning, right? Is that if you can't somehow remain humble to the fact that it's a process of truth seeking. If you're truth seeking, and if you're out there, and if you're, and if you think you're seeing something, then great. But if you can't be humble through the process, I think that you become just as blind as the other bats in your belfry, So I think that everything is a work in progress, and I think that back in the day when I think I had the most power as an individual, when I was all kinds of like, God love and God light, and I was just, I don't know, I was crazy in love with humanity, and I think that was one of the things that I really remember. In fact, I think my old friend, some of my old friends could probably remind me of, which is that there was a time when I was humble to everything that I was basically kind of connecting with. I was humble to it. And humility is one of those things that I'm beginning to learn more and more that, gosh, it's just so important, because I watch how power, right, no matter whether it's power invades the mind of men. Power corrupts the mind of men. Power corrupts the minds of all of us. The illusion of the fact that you're in control or that you know all the answers, I think is probably the fastest way to defeat. So if you can't remain humble, I think you're in trouble, because no matter what you think you may know, if you're not bending with the wind in any way, shape, or form, I think you're setting yourself up for a kind of, well, a different experience than what you may have set out to accomplish in the first place. So, and I think that's how, as it were, the devil or the dark side gets us, is we forget to be humble. So I'm at a point now where I think that no matter what is going on, I'm always going to be looking at it with a slanted, with one eye open. But I think that we have to do that. I think we have to be humble, but I'm not going to continue to, uh, to insist on viewing everything that's going on in the world as being some sort of conspiracy. I think that I have to return, myself personally, I have to return to, hopefully, to some kind of sense of reason, some kind of a sense of humility, and take what I've learned and try to apply it now, I think, to where I can actually be of some kind of use, other than, just harboring, bad feelings. I think that this crisis is helping me because it's teaching me that I really don't have any control either way, and it's just something that I think we all need to learn somehow. I think that's perhaps why it's happening, which is that we don't have control, regardless of what may or may not be going on out there. The real reason for the season for me, when I started this whole thing out, was to be inspiring to people, and to love people, and to spread a message that we're real. I think somehow that was my message. I mean, and this was back during a time when I didn't even know I had a message. I just seemed to be conveying that message, whatever it was, to a whole lot of people. So now I think that, yeah, it's real. It's that we're real. So one way or the other, if you find out what the darkness is, if you can name the boogeyman, that's laying underneath our bed, then good for you. But if you can't name the boogeyman and then get back up and say, I'm not afraid of the boogeyman, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep smiling, and I'm going to keep loving. If you can't do that, then you aren't doing any of us any favors anyway, and you're not doing yourself a favor. So the boogeyman may very well be real, but you also have to be real too. And you have to remember your best virtues, and you have to, as the governor pointed out the other day in New York here, our best angels. So there's that. Thanks for listening. I guess that's it. Okay, bye.